Hi, boys and girls. Today we're going to continue with Frindle by Clements. And today we're going to read chapter 15, the last chapter. And I'm so excited that we are at the end of the book. And I hope that you are excited too. And I can't wait to read it to you. And so remember I told you at the beginning of the story that this is one of my favorite books because it's about a teacher and her student. And I am your teacher and you are my students, right? And my goal as a teacher from the beginning of the school year when I first met you back in August, my purpose was to teach you, to love you, and to inspire you. And I don't know if you remember this shirt, but this is one of my favorite shirts because the message that it has. Do you remember it? It says, teach, love, inspire. And so that is my hope, that I hope that I have inspired you just like Mrs. Granger has inspired Nick. And that's why I love this book. And so I just hope that as we come towards the end of the school year, that I have done that. Even though now we are not in school and we've been doing this distance learning, I still love to teach you. And I hope that I still inspire you. And of course, I love you with all my heart, and I miss all of you. And I miss being in school, which is what I love to do. And so I hope that at the end of this book, you will always remember this book forever, and you will remember your third grade teacher. And so let's begin with chapter 15. And so chapter 15, well, before I start chapter 15, do you remember that on chapter 14 we left off where 10 years had already passed? And it said, I'm going to reread the last paragraphs of chapter 14 just to give us a quick reminder. It says, because the end of the story came later, 10 years later. And what was happening to Nick's word during those 10 years? Nothing fancy, nothing exciting. Words don't work that way. Words either get used or they don't. And Frindle was being used more and more. It was becoming a real word. Well, 10 years had passed, but it wasn't a real word yet, okay? And remember, we left off by saying, is it gonna become a real word? Let's find out today. And so today's chapter is so exciting. It's called, and the winner is, da, 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 da. And the winner is, who do you think the winner is? Nick or Mrs. Granger? Who's on Mrs. Granger's side? Who's on Nick's side? Who's not sure? What do your parents think if they're listening with you? Who's gonna win? Let's find out, okay? And how do you know? What did you base your prediction on? You said, oh, it was Nick because, oh, it's gonna be Mrs. Granger because. Okay, let's see. I'm so excited. And the winner is, 10 years later, Nick Allen was a junior in college. And during November of his junior year, two important things happened. So he's in college already, and this is already his third year. It's kind of like what? My son, he just finished his second year of college, and he's gonna go into his third year. And so Nick had already finished his third year, and during November of his junior year, junior means his third year, two important things happened. First, Nick turned 21 years old, and the Frindle Trust Fund set up by his father became legally Nick's. Do you remember Bud Lawrence and all this Frindle? He even opened a factory. Remember? Go back and remember. And remember, Nick was gonna get 30% of everything that he made. And so remember that his dad put it on a bank account and didn't want to deal with it. So now, because now Nick is 21 years old, he can finally get that money. And it wouldn't be our thing without our airplane passing by, right? There he goes. Yeah. And so Nick was ready to get his money. Nick was rich. Nick was very rich. Wow, cha-ching, cha-ching, lots of money. Nick was rich. Nick was very rich. Nick was so rich, he couldn't even begin to imagine how rich he really was. Wow! Who would have thought that this one idea of this 5th grade boy who was learning in his class where words came from, came up with the idea of changing pen to Frindle. And because of that, now he is rich. Not just rich, very rich. So rich, he couldn't even imagine how rich he was. Wow, you see? Any little idea that you might have, just go and go for it. Nick wanted to give his parents some of that money. Well, that's good. I would love some of that money too, which they said they did not need and would not accept. But Nick reminded them that they had always wanted to travel and that they should just think of this as a big birthday present or something. So they accepted. And Nick also wanted to give some money to his brother, James, who said he did not need to it and would not accept it. Oh, we just learned his brother's name is James. But Nick reminded James that his 2-year-old daughter will grow up and go to college someday. And besides, hadn't James once given Nick his whole baseball card collection? So James accepted the gift. After that, Nick went out and bought himself a fast new computer and about 10 new games and a mountain bike. Then he tried to forget about the money, which is a hard thing to do. But he managed pretty well and kept working on his college degree as hard as ever. So even though Nick had a lot of money, he just kind of decided to just save that money, which is a good thing. The second important thing that fall was the arrival of a package at the door of Nick's apartment one day. Very important. Pay attention, okay? So this is the second thing that happened. The second important thing that happened that fall was the arrival of a package at the door of Nick's apartment one day. A large, heavy package. It was from Mrs. Granger. What's in that package? Think, think, think. I know one thing that's in that package because I remember she told him that she was gonna give it to him. Are you thinking? The envelope, right? But it says that this package is large and it's heavy. Well, an envelope, remember, it's not heavy. Even if there's something inside, it shouldn't be that heavy. But this package is heavy. What could it be? And it was from Mrs. Granger. What does she love so much? Did you guess? Well, let's see. There were 3 things in that package. 1, a brand new 8th edition Webster's College Dictionary. 2, a short handwritten note taped to the cover of the dictionary. 3, a fat white envelope. Turning the white envelope over, Nick saw the name, his name. He had written there one September afternoon in Mrs. Granger's room after school 10 years ago. So exciting. See, remember I told you? So in this package was well, we already knew the envelope, right? Remember the envelope that Nick signed, and it's signed, remember, but it was signed 10 years ago when he was in 5th grade. Right now he's 21 years old in college. And so it's his, right? Remember she said, the way you're gonna know that I didn't open it is because your signature and the date is there. So that's one thing. The other thing is there's a little note, a handwritten note taped to the dictionary. So the other thing was a dictionary, but not just any dictionary, a brand new 8th edition. So because dictionaries have, even books, they have 1st edition, 2nd edition, they just kind of, sometimes they change the covers. And so this dictionary, this is the 8th edition of the Webster's College Dictionary. I hope you're thinking, what's in this new dictionary? I know you know, because you're so smart. You already know what's inside. And so he saw that, right? Nick set the envelope down and gently peeled the note off the front of the dictionary. So he's getting the dictionary, he's gonna look at the note. And here's what the note says, boys and girls. I'm gonna show you, okay? But I get so emotional when I see this. Okay, I'm not gonna cry, I promise. Okay, I already cried when I read it once. Okay, my dear Nicholas, please turn to page 541 of this book, the dictionary. Nick grabbed the dictionary and lifted and went over and over all the way to page 541. And his heart was pounding, just like mine is pounding, and yours should be pounding too. And there between the words Frindle and fringe, he read Frindle, a noun, a device used to write or make marks with ink. Arbitrary coinage originated by Nicholas Allen, American, 1987. See pen as another word instead of Frindle. Nick went back to the note from Mrs. Granger, and it said, "This is a brand new dictionary. The one I oh my God, this is, okay. Deep breath. Deep breath, Ms. Rodriguez. This is the note that Mrs. Granger wrote to him, like to Nick. Look, Nick, this is, I want you to see this. This is a brand new dictionary, the one that I recommend that my students use for their homework. And now when I teach them how new words are added to the dictionary, I tell each and every one of them to look up the word Frindle. And of course, I have sent along the letter I promised to give to you when our little battle was over. And now it's over. So excited. How are you feeling? I hope you are as excited as I am. I want to show it to you. I want to show you in the dictionary, boys and girls, when you remember I had said this at the beginning when I talked to you about dictionary. In the dictionary, you know, we find the meaning of words, and it tells us how to pronounce it, and it tells us if it's a noun or a verb or an adjective, and it also tells us, like, okay, there's another word that is similar to it. So I'm going to show you how it looks in the dictionary. So let me see, let me try. So let's see, Frindle. So you see, it says Frindle. I'm going to leave it there so that you can kind of read it. Do you see? Okay. Okay. So you see how it says, well, it says Frindle, then next to it says N, which is it's for a noun, right? Because a Frindle is a thing, so it's a noun. And it says, it gives a definition of what it is. It says a device used to write or make, okay? So it says a device used to write or make marks with ink. And it says who came up with it. Nicholas Allen, American, which means he's an American. What year? 1987. And then it says C, pen, because when you are writing, you can say the word Frindle or you can say pen, but now Frindle is a real word. It's in the dictionary. Isn't that exciting? And so Mrs. Granger wrote this note to him and told him that now when her students come, her fifth graders, remember that she recommended the blue and the red dictionary, but now she recommends this one, and she tells them to go read, you know, when it says this is a brand new dictionary that I recommend to my students use for their homework. And now when I teach them how new words are added to the dictionary, I tell each and every one of them to look up the word Frindle. And I'm sure that she tells them the story. I used to have a student in fifth grade named Nicholas Allen and blah, 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 blah. She tells them the whole story. It's so exciting. Okay. And then what I like this, it says, And remember, I have sent along the letter I promised to give you when our little battle was over. And now it's over. Who won? Nick. Well, I actually think they both won because Mrs. Granger is the teacher, but I guess Nick won. And then at the end it says, your teacher, Mrs. Lorelli Granger. So that's her name, Lorelli. Her last name is Granger. Nick's head was spinning. He's like, what? What? With shaking hands, he opened that fat white envelope. He pulled out the 10-year-old letter and began to read it. And this is what the letter says. Dear Nicholas. You see that? So, this is a letter that Mrs. Granger wrote 10 years ago when Nick was in 5th grade, when this whole Frindle Frindle business started. So this is what she wrote, and this is what's inside the envelope, okay? Sort of like a prediction that she made. So I'm gonna read it to you, so pay close attention. Dear Nicholas, if you are reading this letter, it means that the word Frindle has been added to the dictionary. Congratulations. A person can watch the sunrise, but he cannot slow it down or stop it, or make it go backward. And that is what I was trying to do with your word. At first, I was angry. I admit that. I was not happy to see the word pen being pushed aside as if it did not matter. But I guess that if the Latin word for feather had been frindulis instead of something else, then you probably would have invented the word pen instead. Like the sunrise, some things just have to happen, and all you can really do is watch. The word Frindle has existed for less than 3 weeks. Remember, this is the letter that she wrote when Nick was in 5th grade. And remember, if you recall, if you go back to the chapters, remember when she called him into her room and gave him the letter. So she wrote this 10 years ago, and she says, the word Frindle has existed for less than 3 weeks. I now see that this is the kind of chance that a teacher hopes for and dreams about. A chance to see bright young students take an idea they have learned in a boring old classroom and put it to a real test in their own world. I confess that I am very excited to see how it all turns out. I am mostly here to watch it happen. But somehow, I think I have a small part to play in this drama, and I have chosen to be the villain. Every good story needs a bad guy, don't you think? She says, in all of this, with this, you coming up with this idea, it seems like I am the bad person. And wasn't she? Remember in the newspaper, the reporter, all of that, it seemed like Mrs. Granger is the bad person. She says, it seems like I have a part to play in this drama, and I have chosen to be the villain. Every good story needs a bad guy, don't you think? So, someday I will be asking you to forgive me, and I hope you will. Nick, I know you like to think. Please think about this. When I started teaching, no one had landed on the moon. There were no space shuttles, no CNN, no weather satellites. There were no video cassette recorders, no CDs, no computers. The world has changed in a million ways. That's why I have always tried to teach children something that will be useful no matter what. So many things have gone out of date, but after all these years, words are still important. Words are still needed by everyone. Words are used to think with, to write with, to dream with, to hope and pray with. And that is why I love the dictionary. It endures, it works, and as you know now, it also changes and grows. Again, congratulations, and I've enclosed a little present for you. Yours truly, Mrs. Granger. Now that's the letter that she wrote 10 years ago, okay, because she knew that this was gonna happen. Nick remembered Mrs. Granger's eyes, and now he understood what some of those special looks had meant. That old fox! She had been rooting for Frindle the whole time. By fighting against it, she had actually helped it along. And so Nick is like, I knew it. Remember I kept telling you throughout the book that deep inside, Mrs. Granger was really proud of Nick. Remember I said that? There was a flat, so there was something else. There was a flat oblong case in the white envelope, the kind of a case you get when you buy a watch. Nick pulled it out and opened the lid. Inside was something else Nick had not seen for 10 years. It was Mrs. Granger's favorite pen, her old maroon fountain pen with the blue cap. And under the clip was a little folded piece of paper. It was another note, a very short note. Just one word, Frindle. She gave him her favorite pen and she wrote Frindle. Remember, her thing was like, no Frindle, no Frindle, you have to say pen. But this time she gave him the pen. About a month later, something happened over in the old part of Westfield, over where the trees are huge and the houses are small. One Christmas morning, Mrs. Granger's doorbell rang. Mrs. Granger opened the door, but no one was there. Now, remember that Mrs. Granger lives in Westfield, right? And she lives, it's in the same city where the school is at. And so the kids do know where Mrs. Granger lives, okay? And so a month later, okay, remember, so Nick, we know that the word Frindle became a real word. It's in the dictionary. He didn't really know until Mrs. Granger sent him the dictionary. And so now, about a month later, something happened over in the old part of Westfield, over where the trees are huge and the houses are small. On Christmas morning, Mrs. Granger's doorbell rang. Ding dong. Mrs. Granger opened the door, but no one was there. It's kind of like a little prank maybe. But someone had left a package inside her storm door, kind of like on her little porch. A box wrapped in green paper with a red bow and a white envelope taped to the end. She smiled as she stooped down to pick it up. As she picked up the package, she noticed a red, white, and blue express mail envelope sticking halfway out of her mailbox next to the doorway. It must have been delivered late on Christmas Eve. She opened the storm door, plucked the envelope from the mailbox, and then shut both doors and went inside with a shiver because it was cold. Mrs. Granger went across the living room and sat on the couch. The express envelope was from the Westfield School District office. So it's a very important envelope, and it came from the district, just like I always tell you, the district wants this. So it came from the Westfield School District office. It looked very important, so Mrs. Granger opened it right away. I want you to think about what's in this envelope. It was a letter from the superintendent of schools, a letter of congratulations to Mrs. Granger. And this is what the letter said. A permanent trust fund for college scholarships had been established with a donation of $1 million from one of your former students. It will be called the Lorelei Granger Students Fund. And this is another part that I love. It's so exciting, and it makes me cry also, because do you see what just happened? Remember, Nick was rich and he has a lot of money. So what he did was he is going to give scholarships to students, but it's not going to say scholarship from Nick. It's going to be in Mrs. Granger's name. So $1 million, but it's under Mrs. Granger's name. So you go to college and you become rich, don't forget your teacher. Okay, so let me reread it again. It says, It was a letter from the superintendent of schools, a letter of congratulations, a permanent trust fund. A trust fund is, for college scholarships, so like for the students that are gonna go to college. It had been a trust fund for college scholarships had been established with a donation of $1 million from one of your former students. Well, it doesn't say Nick, but we know that it's from Nick. It will be called the Lorelei Granger Students Fund. So it's gonna be on her name. See, Nick is so thankful to Mrs. Granger because without Mrs. Granger and without what he learned in her class, he wouldn't be rich. The word Frindle wouldn't be in the dictionary. Now, Nick is super famous. He has a lot of money. He has a word in the dictionary. And the least that he can do for his teacher is to establish a fund so that they can give out scholarships to other students, but under her name, okay? So don't forget your teachers. Mrs. Granger was sure it was a mistake or maybe a prank. $1 million? Nonsense, she thought. She had the urge to pick up the telephone and give the superintendent a call and straighten this out right away. But this was Christmas morning, and even though the superintendent was one of her favorite students that she had, Mrs. Granger decided to wait a day. Couldn't hurt. Besides, the other package that was sitting next to her on the couch, waiting impatiently with its red bow, she opened the envelope first. It was a little Christmas card with a sloppy note, obviously the work of a 5th grade boy. So there was another note, okay? And this is the note. You could tell that it's a kid's writing. Dear Mrs. Granger, and there's some misspellings there too. It says, Dear Mrs. Granger, you are one of my favorite teachers. Here is something I want you to have. Sincerely, a student of yours. You see? And who do we think this note is from? Nick. But it's a note from Nick when he was in 5th grade. Mrs. Granger glared at the spelling mistakes, but then chuckled and shook her head. Kids are always the same, year after year. Here she was in her 45th year of teaching, 45th, all set to retire in June. She could hardly remember a Christmas day when she didn't, oh no, there's a bug. Go away, bug. There's a bug in front of me. There it is, you see it? Oh my gosh. Boop. There, it went away. That was crazy. Crazy bug, you saw it on, that's crazy. Oh my God, that was scary. Okay, well that happens when you read it in the backyard. Okay, good thing it wasn't a bee or it didn't sting me. It was just a bug. Okay, so Mrs. Granger, she was getting ready to retire. She could hardly remember a Christmas day when she didn't have a present from one of her students. Mrs. Granger pulled off the red ribbon and tore off the paper and lifted the lid of the box. She expected to find something made of yarn or popsicle sticks or maybe curly macaroni and glue. But instead, so in this little present that Nick left for her, instead she found an oblong case covered with blue velvet. So another with a little box. She opened the case and inside was a beautiful gold fountain pen. She picked it up and it was cool and heavy in her hand. Words were engraved along the pen's shiny barrel, and Mrs. Granger had to slide down to the end of the couch and turn on her reading lamp. Then she could read the 3 thin lines of the type that they were typed. So what she found was a pen, a gold fountain pen. Do you remember that this is the original one? Remember, this is where it all started with Janet. Remember Janet and Nick were playing, and this is where Nick got the idea, because remember Janet fell and she found she's like, oh, it's not my fault that, that I lost. I saw something, and she picked up the pen, and it was the gold fountain pen, and then Nick got the idea from there, and so he's giving her that original pen, the one where he got the idea from. He gave it to her, but he didn't just give it to her normally. She wrote something in it. Let me reread that again. It says, words were engraved along the pen's shiny barrel, and Mrs. Granger had to slide down to the end of the couch and turn on her reading lamp because she couldn't see that well because it was dark, so she turned on the lamp. Then she could read the 3 lines of type, so it was written. This object, notice that he didn't say this pen, and he didn't say this Frindle. He said this object belongs to Mrs. Lorelei Granger, and she may call it any name she chooses. With love, from Nicholas Allen. So again, the pen that he found where he got the original idea, it says Nick gave it to Mrs. Granger, and it says, there goes the airplane, so many distractions at the end of this book. Okay, so Nick gave Mrs. Granger the original pen that he got the idea with, the gold fountain pen, and he wrote, this object belongs to Mrs. Lorelei Granger, and she may call it any name she chooses. With love, from Nicholas Allen. And can you believe that's the end? That's the end. That's how the story ends. That's the end. Look. You see that? So it ends like that. I want you to think about it like, wait, what do you mean, Ms. Rodriguez? It's over? Yes. Because everything is done. Okay? Remember the title is, and the winner is Nicholas, right? Because his word, Frindle, became a real word. It is in the dictionary. And Mrs. Granger gave him the letter, and in the letter it said what was going to happen. And so Nick was so thankful that he had a lot of money, and he gave Mrs. Granger $1 million under her name so that there can be scholarships for other students to go to college. And so Nick also gives her the original pen that he found on the street where the idea came for him to call it a Frindle and not a pen. And he gave it to her, and this is what it says. This object belongs to Mrs. Lorelei Granger, and she may call it any name she chooses. With love, from Nicholas Allen. He's showing her his respect. Mrs. Granger, you can call this a pen. You can call it a Frindle. You may call it whatever you want, because it is because of you who I am who I am, and the word Frindle is in the dictionary. And so that's the end of chapter 15, and that's the end of our book, Frindle by Andrew Clements. I love this book, and I hope that you love it as much as I do, and I hope that you will always and forever will remember this book in your heart, and I know you will. And so I have a special project that I want you to do. It has to do with you writing something in an envelope, and we're gonna seal it and all of that, but I'm gonna give you directions and how to do it and what I want you to do on our Zoom meeting, or maybe I'll just write you a message. So that's what I want you to do as a special project, but I will let you know more details. And so, boys and girls, it's been a pleasure reading Frindle by Andrew Clements to you. And I hope that you have enjoyed it. I hope that you have learned a lot of things, and I hope that you have the best summer that you can have. And so remember that it is my goal to be able to teach, to love, and to inspire you to be the best that you can be. Okay? So until next time, boys and girls, bye.